All right, you want to move on to the next crazy topic of conversation?
Let's do it.
Barry Larkin had some words about possibly being, I think, we'll listen to the audio, but I think he was suggesting that he was offered's a strong word, but at least invited into having a conversation about being the manager for the Cincinnati Reds. Nick, if you haven't heard it, and for those that might not have heard it, I'm going to play the audio right now, and we'll react to it once we get through it.
You're talking about working with these players and the satisfaction of them learning and teaching. I mean, if I had $1 for every time someone said, Barry Larkin should be the manager of the Reds last year, did you hear all that chatter? How did you deal with it? And based on what you said, is it still maybe something down the line you might want to do?
You know, I got a really great relationship with Bob and Phil Castellini and Nick Krall. They asked me if I was interested in being the manager, and I told them no early.
Wow.
And I really appreciated them for that. One of the reasons I didn't want to do it is because I didn't want to get back into that lifestyle. You know, if I'm in it, I know I'm going to be in it. I wouldn't be able to be grandpa right now, right? Because I'd be grandpa from a distance. I wouldn't be able to fly down and see my grandbaby. So there's a lot of things that I have, a lot of oars in the water, and a lot of things that I'm doing that are more important to me at this particular time in my life. Would I ever want to do it? I don't know. I know I don't want to do it now, and I can appreciate that. But I do have a great relationship with the players, and I love the fact that they've accepted me and allowed me to come and be part of their development. I love the fact that I've got a great relationship with Terry Francona, with David Bell. I had a great relationship with him, right? So, and that doesn't happen in every organization. I talked to a lot of guys that have played this game in a lot of different organizations, and they say they really discourage the former players from coming back and giving back, and it's, wow. You know, so it's really a special situation here in Cincinnati and with this organization, and you know, and I've been super happy with my relationship with all those guys. But no, I don't have any aspirations of being a manager, but I certainly have aspirations in helping that manager and hopefully helping this manager in some player development win a World Series.
All right, well, you heard it from the man himself. Barry is not interested in being a manager because he has other things that are more important to him in his life currently. And I think that, you know, to be very blunt, I appreciated the honest conversation. And I also think that really kind of gives me some insight on Barry Larkin, the broadcaster, as well.
So that was during the Dayton Dragons game today on Sunday for those interested. Larkin joined the broadcast. It was actually on for, I think, a couple innings. And, we posted that on Chatterbox Sports on social media. It was an interesting clip that probably no one knew about and thought it was interesting to put out. I know a lot of people kind of really jumped on that. Oh, the Reds offered Barry Larkin the job. I don't know about you, Trace. I did not take it as he was offered the job. I took it, and I know Larkin kind of worded it very strategic, which, hey, you know what? I would do the exact same thing if I was him, so I no shaded him for this. I think Larkin was asked to interview for the job, which he should. Like, if he's interested, he's a former Hall of Famer for the Cincinnati Reds, he should get the opportunity to interview for the job. I don't think he was offered the job. I don't think the Reds were doing that, and I honestly think there's a good chance that Barry Larkin knew he wasn't going to get the job. And so he said, no, I'm not interested in it because it just saved him from a whole headache and feeling good. So I think there's a whole bunch to do about nothing, but I do think it was notable because he did come on and say that he was asked by Bob, Phil, and Nick. I don't remember the exact word, but it was about being the manager. Like, he didn't say to interview, and I think he said that strategically, but he didn't say also to be the manager either. So he kind of left it very, intentional or not, very kind of right down the middle.
Yeah, Barry seems to me to be the guy in the friend group that everybody has that no one really totally loves to hang out with, but he's just a part of the group because he's there anyways. And you're just kind of hoping and praying that he's not going to say that he wants to come or he's not interested in hanging out. But you kind of have to invite him because if you don't, then it kind of gets awkward and it seems a little bit weird. That's what it seems like with this whole situation with Barry Larkin. I think, if nothing else for me, I think it just points to the fact that he's got a lot of things going on. He said he's got a lot of oars in the water. That sounds perfectly accurate to me, man. I got to tell you, he's probably got a lot of things going on based off the fact that when he does do some broadcasts, some games, it comes off that way. It really does. It seems like he's visiting the grandkids and maybe he just had to rush up to Great American Ballpark to do a series. And Sadak's trying to get anything to come out of his mouth productive at all at times. So Barry's been a great player. He was a great player. Obviously, we weren't fortunate enough to see his entirety of his career. So I'm not here to be totally disrespectful in a way towards the player. Awesome player. Should get all of the accolades and people should love him for that. But let's face it, he's not been great as a broadcaster in general. He's not going to be great probably as a manager based off some of the things I've heard him say during broadcast. But that said, you never know. You never do know. Maybe he'd end up being an awesome manager. But I'm with you, Nick. It's a waste of time because ultimately I don't think he gets offered the job anyways. But I definitely think that they wanted to kind of check the box and say, well, we really wanted to make sure that we gave one of our own a chance to kind of interview for the job. But turns out we had Tito Francona all along. As I still stand by today and believe they had their guy before they fired David Bell. And in fact, I don't think they fired David Bell unless they knew that Tito Francona was going to take the job. So it doesn't really add up in my storyline. Not to be overly, blunt about it, but Larkin never stood a chance. And maybe he doesn't think he did either. I'm not trying to suggest that he did. I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think this is a whole nothing burger, but it was notable because he did put that out there today. And like it's hard with Larkin because he's everything I despise in a broadcaster. He was my favorite player growing up, and you have to try to separate it because this guy was an incredible player for our franchise. Right. I mean, one of the top 5 players in the history of the entire franchise, and he actually played during our lifetime, not the peak of my lifetime, or at least I hope not the peak of my lifetime. But yeah, I don't think this was ever a realistic thing.
Yeah, but by the time I got a chance to see obviously Barry play, he was well past his prime. But at the end of the day, I'm not an idiot to be able to look back and see what kind of numbers he put up and the success that he had as not only as himself, but also as a player that was on some successful teams. And obviously the wire-to-wire team everybody talks about all the time, but even more so, there were some other successful years outside of that. So, you got to give Larkin his flowers when it comes to everything he's meant to this organization. But the truth is, let's face it, he's just, I'll tell you what, I'll say this. I take away from it that he has other priorities outside of baseball that he, loves doing, whether it's hanging out with his grandkids or it's other things. I don't know. He didn't really get into the specifics of it, but, I think it showcases itself, if you will, in the broadcast. And I don't mean that. I know it's going to come off negative, but I think that paints a pretty clear picture to me as to he does these games. He only does them at home. And really, truth be told, I feel like a lot of the time he's there because he thought it'd be a cool opportunity and he wanted to try it out and do it. He likes doing it, but he doesn't really put the time in because he's got other things he'd rather do instead of put the time in onto a broadcasting career. And he's already been there, done it. He's played in the big leagues. Who cares?
Yeah, if the Reds had Sadak, Welsh, and Larkin all together, they just did a 3-man on the games that Larkin does, I think it would come across a whole lot better.
I agree.
It would feel a whole lot better. They actually did one opening day together. I thought it was a really nice broadcast. Larkin just would kind of add, and that's I think what you should have, because broadcasting is sort of like playing. The best should be there. Chris Welsh has worked his tail off his entire life, and Jeff Brantley really too. I mean, Jeff Brantley has put in his time and put in his dues. So those guys really should have those jobs. And I think if Larkin was just more of an accessory to a broadcast instead of the sole color commentator, I think it would come across a whole lot better. And that's the thing that rubs me wrong. But I'm going to give one Barry Larkin stat because I don't want to be completely negative about this whole thing. Something I was actually looking up for something else I was researching, another little project I'm working on. So the Reds in the 1995 NLCS got swept by the Atlanta Braves. They had a couple guys named Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox pitch in that series that were pretty good. The Reds didn't hit at all. My guy Reggie Sanders famously went 2 for 16 with 10 strikeouts, but no one else hit in that series. The Reds as a team hit 209. Larkin had 7 hits. Larkin went 7 for 18 in that series. No one else had more than 3 hits. So, he had over 1,000 OPS in a series with Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox, and Avery. One of the most underrated things that Barry Larkin did in his career.
That's a fantastic stat. And I think it also shines a light on how good of a player Barry Larkin was.